to start this month's planning board meeting. First is a pledge of allegiance. So would everybody stand? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Is that better? Are there any adjustments to the agenda? No adjustments. Can we have an approval of the minutes of the last meeting?
Move to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2023.
A second.
Okay. The first item on the public comments is 2022-212 RZ Woodbriar rezoning. Bruce Venable, staff.
Good evening, Board. My name is Bruce Venable, Planner 1 for the town. I have before you an application for a rezoning project. The applicant is requesting to rezone from residential estate and office institutional to single-family residential 8, which is our 8,000 square foot lots. The existing use is vacant with some single-family residence located to the north. It's approximately 4.4 acres. And it's located at the corner of Barber Mill and 42/Lombard Street. Current zoning here, you can see, as I've stated, we have RE to the north, and to the southwest, we have the office institutional. The proposed zoning shown on the bottom image is what it would look like if it was rezoned to the residential single-family estate. The future land use map shows this area as high-density residential and medium-density residential. A little excerpt from our code, our current code right now. In the R10 and R8 districts, townhouse parcels, apartment parcels, and upper story residential units shall not exceed a density of 10 units per acre. That's just to add reference for as we talk about the proposed densities in the future land use plan. As I mentioned, this area is shown to be medium density residential and high density residential. For medium density residential, we have a gross density of 3 to 5 units per acre. And in the high density residential, we have a gross residential density of equal to but less than 10 units per acre. Just some factors to consider. This rezoning would allow any permitted use within the R8 zoning district to be constructed on the site. The planning board should consider all potential uses of the site prior to approving this proposal. Staff recommends approval of this proposed zoning request. And we have a statement of consistency and reasonableness should we get to that time for voting. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and the applicant is here as well.
Okay. Can we hear from the applicant?
Absolutely.
Good evening. I'm Donnie Adams with Adams and Hodge Engineering, 314 East Main Street in Clayton. My firm is the engineering planners on this project. And as planning staff presented to you, we're requesting rezoning to R8 for both of these parcels. And we've addressed the approval criteria. It should be in front of you. I'm happy to go through each of those, but we believe that this is an appropriate rezoning and consistent with the future land use plan. Be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
I don't have any questions. I do think it's appropriate and it fits in with the long-range plan. I do have a question. Can you hear me better now? Okay. So Mr. Lee and my displays are off. So if I'm going to make a motion or anything tonight, I'm going to need to have that up so I can read the motion criteria. But I am supportive of this. I just wanted to make that statement.
You want to go down there?
Sorry.
Okay, yeah. You got that, he's got that, one, so you go. We'll just yell it, it'll get to you. No.
Would you mind going over the criteria that you were just talking about?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Would you mind going over the criteria that you said you would meet?
Absolutely. So number one is consistency with the adopted plans and policies of the town. Again, we believe that this zoning is consistent with the future land use plan. We understand that anything that's proposed on it has to meet all the requirements of the town ordinances. Number two, the suitability of the subject property for uses permitted by the current versus the proposed districts. Again, we're requesting the R8, and that's clear in front of you on what is allowed in that, and we believe it's appropriate again with the future land use plan. Number three is whether the proposed change tends to improve the balance of uses or meets the specific demand in the town. And we believe that this rezoning, more specifically from the RE to the R8, allows an opportunity to address the need for higher density residential. Number four, the capacity of adequate public facilities and services, including schools, transportation, infrastructure, recreation facilities, wastewater treatment, water supply facilities, and storm water drainage facilities for the proposed use. All of these things are basically in place. We do not believe that we're creating an adverse impact on any of them. We're not requiring any additional extensions beyond or from off-site to here. Number five, it has been determined that legal purposes for which zoning exists are not contravened, and the proposed zoning does not violate any of the legal standards. Number six, it has been determined that there will be no adverse effect upon adjoining property owners unless such effect can be justified by the overwhelming public good or welfare. And so, yes, we don't believe there are any perceived adverse impacts by rezoning this to R8.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else on the board have anything to say about this? Would anybody on the board like to make a motion to either approve, excuse me, thank you. Is there anybody in the public who would like to say anything about this item? Nobody? Okay. Anybody on the board like to make a motion to either approve or deny this item?
I would like to make a motion to approve. We find this rezoning action to be consistent with the future land use map, LU1, policy LU1.1, strategy LU1.1.1, strategy LU1.1.2, strategy LU12.2 of the town of Clayton's 2045 comprehensive growth plan. And the proposed zoning amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it supports the town of Clayton 2045 comprehensive growth plans, policies, and because this rezoning would allow for high and medium density residential development along with major thoroughfare, and the rezoning is consistent with the zoning of adjacent parcels and development near this site.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion Passes unanimously. The second item on the agenda is 2023-51-0A sign ordinance amendment. Planning Director Ben Howell.
Good evening, board members. So tonight we have, actually, this item and the next item are both ordinance amendments to our sign code. This first one is an amendment to the general sign code to allow decorative string lighting to be used by businesses as part of their signage. And it also defines when the holiday period occurs in the town. This amendment was initiated at the request of the Downtown Development Association and Town Council. So the, excuse the title there on the slide, but this proposed text amendment adds definition of decorative string lighting into the code, which defines it as lighting either constant, flashing, or intermittent, arranged in a line, string, or rope applied to the exterior of a building or on the interior of a building attached to externally oriented architectural features such as windows or doors. It also defines a holiday period mentioned in the code to be between November 1st and January 15th each year. And then it also adds specific standards for decorative string lighting as listed on the screen there and in the text amendment in your package. I'll just point out a couple of them. One is the maximum bulb rating. One is restriction of color to white unless it's during the holiday period. There's also restrictions on how it can be affixed or areas that it can be placed. The approval criteria for text amendments is on your screen. Staff believes this text amendment is consistent with the remainder of the code and all approved plans. The text amendment is a result of changing circumstances to allow businesses to utilize decorative lighting to accentuate building site features and provide lighting for outdoor dining areas. The text amendment does not correct any error, and apologize, the last part is it's missing, is cut off, but it does not, it's not dealing with complying with state or federal statutes or case law. With that, the planning board, asked planning board to discuss and recommend the text amendment for section 155-403 for public hearing and consideration by town council. And a consistency statement is there on your screen if you so choose to recommend this text amendment for adoption.
One question, you gave the dates for the holiday season, which is November to February or January. Is that just pertaining to colored lights? Because you said after that, white lights would not be constrained, or it sounded to me like you said white lights would not be constrained by this ordinance if they were outside for dining or whatever like that.
Correct. So this ordinance would allow business establishments primarily to have lighting as long as it is a white in color throughout the year. And then between November 1st and January 15th, they could have colored holiday lighting.
I'm very supportive of this. I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
So, obviously, every string light that's up right now was out of compliance. So, how are you and the town staff proposing to bring everybody in compliance? So, are you going to say, hey, everything that's up now is grandfathered even though they were illegal before this was adopted? Or is everybody going to now have to come in with a plan and pay a fee, which I think would take an overwhelmed department and make you more overwhelmed? So what's the game plan there?
So if this text amendment is approved, we will, string lighting will be approved as long as it meets the code. So we don't at this point have the ability to measure the kelvins, I think it is, or light wattage. So essentially, once this text amendment, if this text amendment is approved, we will go into a reactive code enforcement structure. So if someone complains, we will go out there and investigate, but we are not going to proactively be policing the string lighting.
That was a genius level answer. So that was perfect. So I'm very supportive. I don't know if anybody else got any questions, but I will gladly move to approve after discussion.
Is there any public comment on this ordinance change? Didn't think so. Okay, is there any comment from the board? Okay. Can I get a motion from the board to either approve or deny this ordinance amendment?
I move to approve 2023-51 sign ordinance amendment string lighting. I need to read the consistency statement.
Yes, please.
Okay. This text amendment is consistent with 2045 growth plan, specifically strategies DT 1.1.1. Continue to use the UDC to set standards and consider modifications to encourage flexibility. And goal ED3, support downtown Clayton as an economic asset.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is sign ordinance 2023-52-OA billboards.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Allen.
All right. So this text amendment is again to Chapter 155, Section 403, specifically subsection G, which speaks to billboards. The proposed text amendment is to allow, the purpose of the proposed text amendment is to allow for relocation of billboards if they are subject to annexation or development agreement. And it also clearly states that billboards on parcels annexed in town must be removed within 15 years. This amendment was initiated at the request of the Economic Development Department and Town Council. So you'll see on your screen the specific language that has been added into the section of code regarding billboards. Essentially, what it does is if currently billboards are not permitted inside town limits, they're permitted in the ETJ and specifically on US Highway 70 business and 70 bypass. What this ordinance amendment would do is if a parcel is annexed into town and has a billboard located on it, they would be able to move that billboard even if it would not be in compliance with our spacing regulations, as long as they also enter into an agreement with the town to remove that billboard within 15 years. And the reason we went to the 15 years is because there are a number of billboards in town, and we also know that some of these billboards have very long leases that are very difficult to get out of. And so, but we feel that 15 years should give enough time for someone to be able to negotiate to take the billboard down. So that's the primary purpose of the billboard, of this regulation, in order to allow billboards to stand for a little bit longer, knowing that they will eventually come down. So the approval criteria, again, is on your screen. I'll just go through the staff responses very quickly. This text amendment is consistent with the remainder of the code and all approved plans. The text amendment is a result of changing circumstances. The town has a number of non-conforming billboards in the ETJ on vacant property that could be annexed into the town for development. Many of these billboards have long-term leases that limits the amortization clause in the code. The text amendment does not correct any error, and the text amendment is not due to state or federal statutes or case law. Staff recommends that the planning board discuss and recommend this text amendment to the town council for public hearing consideration, and there's the consistency statement is also located on your screen. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from the board?
I've got a question. I'm very supportive of this also. I think it's very reasonable. But I do have a question in regards to, we have some very old billboards out there, and they may or may not meet today's construction standards. And I'm assuming that these billboards will have to comply, and the building inspectors will have to say that they are appropriate. So to me, and I'm just, because I've been caught in situations before where I thought one thing and then, oh, wow, I didn't expect this. And looking at the town council, if you do this, are you saying, hey, you can move or install, you have the right to relocate a billboard, because it may be the billboard company's decision that, hey, I'd rather have a monopole new style billboard of the same size. I can amortize over 180 months instead of moving 6 light poles to a new location. So I don't know, is any consideration being given to that, or is that going to be completely up to the billboard company's discretion as long as they meet building code?
So this text amendment is not meant to allow any new billboards. So the only flexibility this text amendment gives is for moving a billboard to be within that 2,000 feet separation that we currently have. So for example, if there's an existing billboard out there on site today that is non-conforming in more ways than just the separation. So if the billboard out there today is very old, but it's larger than we would allow, they would not be allowed to construct a new billboard of a smaller size and relocate it. They would have to remove the billboard.
I understand that, but I'm saying that if you've got an existing, right-hand reader with 2 faces on it that's 14 by 60, or I'm just throwing numbers out there, do you have to move that structure? Or if the owner wanted to bring a new monopole that was more readily available instead of having 6 poles, I'm just saying that when you get technical, I would think it would be to the town's advantage to say, if you wanted to upgrade this pole to a new modern design, we encourage that, and not saying that the only way you can relocate it is if you relocate exactly what you've got right there. That was my only question.
Yeah, the amendment doesn't necessarily speak to that, and the code and the text and the code doesn't really speak to that specific situation. I think if they could meet all the other requirements and still amortize it, it probably would be allowed, but that's something that I'd really have to look into.
Yeah, I really think, because I'm going to vote to approve or to recommend approval for this, but I really think that this is up here because there's an issue, and I see our economic development director here. So I'm assuming that this is going to be something that's tested almost immediately, and I really think that that's something that we ought to be proactive about instead of reactive about, because I know how long it can take sometimes to go through the channels of reaction. And I just think that leave it with the council, and y'all make the right decision. So that was my only thought.
Is there any comment from the public? No comment, okay. Any more discussion from the board?
Trying to save you time, Ben. So don't have to come back again.
Can I get a motion on either approval or denial of 2023-5208 sign ordinance amendment? Billboards.
I'll make a motion to approve 2023-52-0 or OA sign ordinance amendment billboards. Consistency statement, this text amendment is consistent with the 2045 growth plan, specifically policy ED 1.2, preserve and development prime industrial land for employment growth, and policy ED 1.5, continue business retention efforts and support existing commercial corridors.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 2022-154, River Muse Conditional Zoning District and Master Plan. Ben Howell, Planning Director.
All right, good evening again. So this is a request to rezone properties from planned development residential zoning district to conditional zoning residential district. The proposed conditional rezoning would allow for up to 825 units as a mixture of single-family homes, townhomes, and multifamily, with also an assembly use or event center. Overall density would be 3 units an acre on a 277 acre, approximately 277 acre parcel, and it's located off of NC 42 East by the river. On your screen is the proposed master plan. As you can see by all the green is area that will be preserved and not really developed, and then the different colors correspond to different types of units. The multifamily would be proposed to be up close to 42 with the density moving with the townhomes in the, I believe in the, townhomes in the purple and the single family residential in the orange, with the event center at the top there in that reddish color. Again, the access to the proposed development would be 2 access points on NC 42. Water, sewer, and electric would be provided by the town of Clayton. It is surrounded by primarily existing residential areas. There is a section, a part of the CAT property is adjacent as well to this development. On your screen here, you'll see the different development standards. They've provided differential standards for front-loaded versus rear-loaded single-family development, single-family dwellings. They've also provided standards for rear-loaded versus front-loaded townhomes, as well as apartments. You can see that on your screen there. The proposed development may generate 6,000, according to the TIA, the proposed development may generate 6,758 total trips. 474 of those would be in the AM peak hour and 607 would be in the PM peak hour. The proposed development would have 2 access points on NC 42 East. Both the TIA and NCDOT recommended left turn lanes on NC 42 at each access point. DOT also made additional recommendations. One, to elongate recommended westbound right turn lane at Site Drive 1. The TIA recommended, I believe, 75 feet. DOT has recommended that be 100 feet of storage. DOT has also recommended that the existing left turn lane on NC 42 at Castleberry Road should be extended to have 850 feet of storage, and the existing U-turn between the two side drives shall be monitored for a signal in the future. Staff received the NCDOT recommendation a little late, so we are recommending that the planning board include a recommendation to the town council directing staff and the applicant to negotiate the NCDOT recommendations into a condition. The project will comply with Town of Clayton Stormwater Ordinance. Public water is currently available on NC 42 East. Public sewer is currently available in a dry sewer line located near the development, and electric service is available from the Town of Clayton. The proposed development would include a 15-foot wide type C landscape buffer around the exterior of the development. With the exception along the Neuse River, they are proposing to preserve the existing vegetation there to be counted towards the buffer requirement, and interior landscaping would meet UDC requirements. The architectural standards are on your screen. I apologize, there are a lot of them. But as you can see there, they are including a minimum 25% masonry requirement, as well as requiring architectural style shingles, limiting the front facade to fiber cement, brick, and or stone material. And they also talk to the mix of units and the number of garages. The conditional zoning district criteria, the first criteria is regarding consistency with adopted plans and policies of the town. The 2045 growth plan calls for this area to be low density residential and recreation open space along the river frontage, which would allow for up to 3 units per acre. The plan calls for low density residential area to be primarily single family detached homes with up to 25% of the area as townhomes. While this proposed development is consistent with the growth plan in terms of density, it is not consistent with growth plan in the terms of the recommended types of residential units. For example, the growth plan is silent on multifamily uses in the low density residential category. There's also additional discussion of this point in the staff report. The current zoning of the property is planned development residential. It's currently surrounded by some industrial, residential, and mixed-use development. And NC 42 has recently been widened to 4 lanes along the development frontage. So staff believes that the property may be suitable for the proposed development. Again, the area is currently primarily residential with some industrial, which is the CAT property, and mixed use at Glen Laurel. The proposed development would also include a mix of housing and density, and would provide an assembly use or event center that does not currently exist in the area. The development would be served likely by East Clayton Elementary, Riverwood Middle, and Clayton High School. Of those, Clayton High is the only one on the CAP schools list for the current school year, or for the upcoming school year. The development would be accessed by NC 42 East. East Clayton Community Park is nearby on Glen Laurel Road, and the developer is also proposing dedication of land for a new park along the river in the development. Details of that are to be hammered out in a development agreement between the developer and the town council. The development is proposed to be served by extension of an existing dry sewer line and existing downstream pump stations, and the development will be subject to the town wastewater allocation policy. Public water is available on NC 42, and the development will follow the town stormwater ordinance. And all town ordinances, procedures, and approvals will be followed. With the conditions and the 15-foot landscape buffer with opaque screening, staff does not believe there will be any adverse impact on adjoining property owners. And with the imposed conditions, no detriment is expected to the general public from this development. Staff believes the applicant has met the criteria for the master plan approval through the master plan narrative, and the conditions included in the staff report. Considerations for the planning board. The planning board shall make a recommendation to the town council, and that recommendation shall include a written statement of reasonableness and consistency. the planning board may recommend conditions be added or removed, but the applicant must agree to any change in conditions prior to the council decision. And the conditional zoning district master plan and narrative will be recorded with Johnson County if approved, and they will run with the land and not expire. Staff recommends approval of the Rivermuse Conditional Zoning District subject to the 24 conditions listed in the staff report to the town council. Staff also recommends that the planning board include a recommendation to revise condition 20 to include the additional recommendations from NCDOT as outlined in the staff report to the town council pending agreement by the applicant. And I'll take a moment. The longer list of conditions, I did not get a chance to place it into the staff report, but I wanted, or into the presentation, but I wanted to provide them here for you tonight, just so you're aware. So the conditions 1 through 3 are the standard conditions. Condition 4 is related to the uses that would be allowed in the development. Condition 5 includes some supplementary use standards, primarily around the potential event venue that may or may not be also used as bed and breakfast or hotel motel. Condition 6 is the maximum number of units and the breakdown of how those units can be allocated to the different type of residential units, as well as the maximum number of seats for the assembly use and maximum number of rooms that can be used in the assembly use for overnight guests, or if they choose to have a bed and breakfast or hotel motel use, the maximum number of rooms for overnight guests. Conditions 7 and 8 are related to the dimensional standards for the single-family lots and townhome lots. Condition 9 is limitation on the height of multifamily buildings. Condition 10 would allow the developer to include additional private trails in the development. Condition 11 is requirement of a construction of a pool and clubhouse amenity to serve all or a portion of the development prior to the issuance of the 375th building permit. Condition 12 speaks to additional amenities that may be provided or that will be required to be provided. Condition 13 speaks to an ability to have a cul-de-sac that is beyond 750 linear feet if it's approved by the fire code official. Condition 11 is related to provision of a public greenway and trail located along the Neuse River that ultimately will become part of the Mountains to Sea Trail and East Coast Greenway. Condition 15 is related to the requirement for the development agreement that will be presented to town council. Condition 16 is related to the sewer provision of sewer services and making sure there's adequate capacity in the downstream infrastructure. Condition 17 is a listing of the architectural standards. Condition 18 is related to the architectural standards for non-residential and multifamily uses. Condition 19 is related to access to the event venue utilizing a private gravel drive. Condition 20 is related to the transportation improvements at the site drives. Condition 21 allows for up to 10% of the proposed townhome units to front on open space. Condition 22 relates to the requirement for the buffer and the use of existing vegetation along the Neuse River as that buffer. And condition 23 relates to specific standards for the assembly use. And condition 24 is a standard condition about any conflicts between the master plan narrative, and the conditions. And with that, staff has provided a recommended statement of consistency and reasonableness if you so choose to recommend approval of this project. This is a public comment session. The applicant is here with the presentation. There may also be members of the public here to speak. I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have one immediate question then. On the pool, the 375, is that inclusive of the apartments? Because I know most of the time when you have apartments that size, they'll have a separate amenity. And I think it would be prohibitive on a developer to be penalized if, the apartments come up 270, 240 units are going up, and then they get into the first phase of their development. All of a sudden you say, hey, you can't have any more building permits because the apartments were counted.
Yeah, that condition actually was proposed by the developer. And generally speaking, I think apartments, it's like each apartment building would be one CO. But I believe based on the information in the master plan, and the developer may be able to answer this question better, but it does appear that they are planning for the apartment development to have its own amenity. But it would be up to the developer as to the timing of that construction.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm very supportive. In general, I have a couple more questions, but I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything that, again, was something that would be a hurdle in the future for staff and the developer.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the board? May we hear the applicant?
Good evening, Planning Board. Thank you for letting us be here today. I'm Joey Brem, and I'm representing Golden Hour Collective. I'm joined by my colleague Danny Perkins and our civil engineer, McAdams, both David and Nate. Thank you guys for letting us be here today to share our vision with you. This is a project that we've been working on for a long time, and we're very excited about. I want to thank the town staff, and especially Ben Howell, for being so supportive and responsive throughout this process. Allowed us to get here today with a solid and clear vision. So us as a team, we have a handful of projects in the Carolinas going right now, and I can honestly say we're the most excited about this one. We think Clayton shares a lot of our visions and values. We're watching the growth happen here, and we think the town council and staff members and planning board have done a great job facilitating growth within the community with excellent schools, business-friendly environment. It's a community we really want to partake in, and we want to build homes and exceptional housing for people to live in for years to come. So I wasn't sure how this is all going to go. Ben touched on a lot of points and facts, so I'll jump around here a little bit. I apologize, but the site itself sitting on 277 acres. You can see there's a photo of it on your screen. It's just absolutely breathtaking. When we first visited the site, we were really in awe of how cool this was. And, we kind of got our paintbrush out and figured how can we incorporate the natural beauty of the site in the most way possible. And in an effort to do that, we've been working with the Army Corps and DWR on restorative efforts. The previous owner had actually removed a pretty important stream in the middle of the site, and he did not pull a permit on it, and our consultants found it, and so we're undertaking a pretty large project to restore that stream and use it for more beauty on the site. We're actually able to put homes along that perennial stream for backyards and things of that nature. So we're doing what we can as a developer, again, to keep the natural beauty alive on this site. I know Ben touched on it, but we are strategically replacing the apartment towards Highway 42. We feel that's the less picturesque area of the site, if you will, and we want to take advantage of the more beautiful areas of the site and put those single-family homes towards the back, where they'll have their backyards looking into the open green space, connecting to trails, and again along those perennial streams. Architectural standards. We really enjoyed our process going through that with the city because we share in our architectural standards and what your vision is. We want to build quality housing. And so we quickly align with the city on that, and we share the vision on the housing. Amenities, there are going to be 3 separate clubhouses, that are going to entail pools, workout facilities, fitness studios, and some sort of platform. Maybe it's a tennis, maybe it's a pickleball court. Undecided completely on that yet, but they will all be strategically placed around the site with great connectivity through trails, so everybody can kind of enjoy different amenities as needed. We've talked with the city about park dedication, kind of back and forth quite a bit on this, and we found a spot on the site we think can make for a really good public park. It's on the southeastern portion of the site, and David will show this in his presentation, but we see this being a mutual beneficial value to both the private sector, us being the developer, and also the public, being you guys, the town council and city planning commission. We want to help facilitate the growth of this park. We've offered to donate some pickleball courts and build some pickleball courts on the park. It's an amenity that we're seeing in other areas of the country that are developing really, really rapidly. It's one of the most popular sports right now in America, and we want to just kind of help bring this park to life if possible. Ben touched on the Mountain to Sea Trail. That's going to connect through the park eventually, hopefully, if we can get that approved, which would allow great connectivity into the town, so people can kind of walk back and forth from this development into the town. They can use the park, use the pickleball courts, or whatever it may be. So we're hoping that we can all align with the town on the park itself. Right now, it's 13 acres, the park. There's additional room for more green space if needed. And we'd love to have that conversation throughout this process. The one really unique, probably the most unique portion of this site is the existing buildings. The gentleman who previously lived here had built a miraculous area in the back northwestern portion of the site, and we weren't sure what to expect when we first saw it. But once we drove in and looked at it, we said, there's no way we can tear this down. We have to make this a part of the site somehow. So we looked at it maybe as amenity and what we would do. And we ended up having the town council out on site and the mayor and some staff members. And we all kind of said, hey, this would be a really great event space. And as we continued to further our research, we said, a wedding venue would be perfect back here. I mean, it's just extremely picturesque. It's right on the Neuse River. It's already kind of set up for that. The main building in the living quarters has 4 bedrooms. There's a horse stable, which is the second building. It's a little smaller. They are horse stables, but they're like the nicest horse stables you've ever seen in your entire life. They're really cool. And above it is four bedrooms as well. So there's 8 bedrooms already in place right now. And then there's little ancillary buildings around too, where we think we can add maybe 3 or 4 bedrooms. And I know there's been some talks on maybe this is going to be a bed and breakfast or some type of event space, but we're really not looking at it as a bed and breakfast. We're looking at it as a wedding venue and a place where maybe the bridesmaids and the groomsmen can kind of stay overnight and enjoy maybe an entire weekend there and really enjoy the space. So we're really excited about that. As developers, yes, we're not wedding planners or wedding experts, but we've found some really great help here locally, some people who have executed on some great wedding venues, who have owned wedding venues, and we're going to hire them to help execute this vision. We've hired some great landscape architects to kind of turn this into a bouquet, if you will. So it's going to look more beautiful than it does already. And we think with all those elements and qualities, we can have one of the best wedding venues in all of Johnson County. So we're excited about that, and we're hoping you guys can share in our vision and align with what we're trying to do. So with that being said, we really aim to create a solid blend of residential living, recreational facilities, and natural beauty while strengthening our relationship with the town of Clayton. And we're excited to embark on this journey and look forward to our session with the planning board today. Thank you for your time, and I'll introduce David from McAdams.
Thank you, Joey. Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Board. My name is David Bergmark. I'm a senior planner with McAdams, the engineering and land design firm that's helping out Golden Hour Collective and Joey and his group with this proposal. So he went over kind of the vision. I'm going to just hit some project highlights. Your staff already gave a good overview. I think everyone's aware of the project location against the Neuse River on NC 42, Flowers Plantation, and the elementary school just to the east, shops at Glen Laurel just a little bit to the west. Just snapshot, 825 units, total good mix of single-family townhomes and apartments. We already talked about the 13 acres for the event venue, 3 dwelling units per acre max. One nice thing about this development is it's kind of naturally buffered by a number of features. So if you're looking at impact on adjacent property owners, you have the Neuse River on kind of the north and east side. You have frontage along NC 42 along the south. We don't have any streets that really tie into existing neighborhoods, so very limited impact on anything around it. We're kind of able to kind of create our own vision here without disturbing too many neighbors. Staff spoke to the comprehensive plan, 2045 growth plan consistency. We are within that 3 dwelling units per acre max. A mix of housing units is permitted within a conditional zoning application within that designation per your code. Staff also spoke to the fact that 2045 plan kind of speaks more to single family than the attached units and apartments. However, we think a higher percentage of those attached units is really warranted here, given the significant environmental constraints. We have a lot of river buffers. We're actually restoring a stream that was removed previously in order to create a more natural environment. And so those kind of constraints really lead to a more denser, more compact form being more appropriate. We also have the presence of that event venue is obviously very unique to this site. And between that and the public park, we feel like when you have something, assuming the town board accepts the public park donation, but if you have a public park on site, you want to really capitalize on that, make it more walkable, accessible to nearby residents. So having a little bit more density adjacent to a town park is a positive thing for those reasons. And then more generally, this is obviously close to the shops at Glen Laurel, and you're right on a recently improved 4-lane NC 42. We've brought up the project map before. Ben went through this, but again, apartments obviously clustered closer to NC 42. And as I go through these, you have a kind of a yellow highlight about the area, around the area I'm speaking to. So the multifamily highlighted in yellow, up against 42, where your existing infrastructure is most able to support it. Then transitioning away from that denser multifamily, you have your townhome pod kind of radiating out from that multifamily site, and then extending up our kind of east-west collector road that goes out to our kind of northwest boundary. And also those townhomes also kind of buffer an existing CP&L utility easement that cuts diagonally through our site. Then in the yellow, overall orange color, our single family, with a lot of those single family lots having strong exposure to riparian buffers in the open space, kind of filling in those gaps. And then finally, the event venue that Joey spoke to up against the Neuse River, really gorgeous site. So overall, we have about 110 acres in total of open space, which is about a third of the site. 6 acres of that is improved open space at different park sites. Again, the 13 acres we're offering to the town to be further delineated and negotiated through a developer's agreement with your council. The stream that we're restoring that I mentioned. And we also have a condition that would allow up to 10% of our proposed townhomes to front on open space. The idea being, let's take some of those units that are closer to the Neuse River and actually kind of front them out towards the Neuse, let them really enjoy that view. And then a host of recreational amenities, multiple pools, multiple clubhouses. By the way, Mr. Lipscomb, I really appreciate your question earlier about the condition related to when the first pool and clubhouse will be required. I very much appreciate that. I think we're, as your planning director stated, we proposed that language. We're okay with it because there would be kind of a pool, clubhouse pool amenity that would go with the apartment. So even if that really kicks into gear the number of units in place, we're okay. It's not a problem with it, but I do appreciate that question. We would have hard surface sports courts, and again, pocket parks, greenway, which would be part of the Mountains to Sea Trail as it was further extended off our site, as well as our own private trails. Highlighted on your screen now just to show you where that area is that we'd be doing the stream restoration, kind of bridging the gap between those two riparian buffers shown in the blue colors on either side. We would have one kind of crossing over it, but it would be where there used to be a pond there. So it would be right where the old dam crossing was historically on the site. You can see in kind of the bright green going along the edge of the Neuse River, the conceptual greenway that would follow it, down to NC 42, and then the area that's in the orange dashed lines in the southeast corner. That's the area that we're kind of presenting or proposing to your council as being a public park space with access off of our eastern drive. So you would be able to get into the park without having to drive through our development to get there, and it would have access directly to this greenway and directly to the Neuse River. I won't belabor this other than with utilities, other than to say there's water right on the road. There's the existing sewer stub at our southeast corner. We'd extend both through the site, and the sewer would gravity flow to that existing line. And we did include a condition that spoke to any being a downstream sewer capacity would be conducted, and that if there were any improvements needed to town infrastructure like your pump stations in order to facilitate our development, then we'd undergo those improvements in order to support what we're proposing. I have with me, although I wasn't going to drag him up here, kind of our traffic engineer expert, Nate Boquin. So he and his team prepared the TIA report that was submitted to the town, reviewed by the town and by NCDOT. And based on those findings, initially it was talking for 2 westbound right turn lanes into the site. We really were actually, ideally, we'd love to have a left in, but for now it's 2 right in, right outs. This road obviously was recently improved, so we have an existing 4-lane median divided in front of us, which is great. Those additional TIA improvements that your staff spoke to that they're looking to incorporate into condition 20. We don't really have any problem with that, other than there was one tweak in language we wanted to propose. So again, that was the extending at NC 42 and Site Drive 1, just making that turn lane longer, no problem there. That the existing U-turn on NC 42 between Site Drive 1 and 2 would be evaluated to see if it needed a signal in the future. Again, no problem. At NC 42 and Castleberry Road, there was language asking for the existing eastbound left turn lane to be extended to 850 feet. We would ask, could we revise that to be extended per NCDOT review and approval, and then put approximately 850 feet of storage. The reason for that is as we get more into construction drawings for the site, negotiate with the NCDOT more on this, if we've come across a real big infrastructure problem, conflict, and say it needs to, they might look at it and DOT might say, okay, well, based on this, 800 feet is fine. We're basically saying we'll follow what NCDOT says. We want to acknowledge what that initial recommendation is, but allow a little bit of flexibility if there was some whatever, stormwater or some other issue that caused them to just vary that a little bit. So that's the reason for that underlined language in red is as being our request and recommendation on that condition. I won't go through all these architectural conditions, but if you want me to, I can, but otherwise I'm going to skip by them. They spoke to them. The only thing I want to mention is that there is a condition that speaks to not having driveways directly accessing that east-west kind of circulator road through our site, so that you're reducing conflicts. You really allow that traffic to flow through the site without having individual driveways accessing it. So key takeaways, if you're considering your recommendation to the town council, what I ask you to consider is, what we're proposing here is a residential mixed-use neighborhood that offers a real variety of housing options. It's ideally situated kind of at the eastern gateway of Clayton along the Neuse River. Includes a public greenway that would form a future extension of your Mountains to Sea Trail. Would have an approximately 13-acre public park land being offered along that Neuse River and along that trail. You have a road that's been recently widened and fully capable of supporting our traffic, as well as some additional TIA improvements that we would make. It's aligned in terms of density with your future land use plan. It includes tailored architectural standards, which is a real benefit of this conditional process, as you're able to get applicants to propose design standards that might not otherwise be, you couldn't otherwise require on a permitted by right type of proposal. And in this case, you have the proposed event venue that's really a unique feature on this site to preserve these architecturally distinct buildings, offer a really unique opportunity for economic development, and just a space for community gatherings. So again, I want to just thank you for your time tonight and be happy to address any questions you may have.
I do have a question on traffic. If you could explain the entrances better, because I believe I understand it to be you'll have a left turn lane that goes directly into your site, and then you'll go past the second entrance and you'll have to do a U-turn and come back to get in there. So there's not a direct, they're all reduced conflict intersections. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's the modern term. Previously, it was referred to as super street. So essentially, yeah, there would be 2 right in, right out driveways. You would, if you were approaching from the west, you would drive past it, U-turn, and then make a right into the site. And that was something we had quite a few conversations with NCDOT to see if they were open to either a left in or a full movement intersection. With the recent improvements out there, they were a little reluctant to modify and allow an additional median break. And our analysis showed that it did function quite well with the reduced conflict intersection design.
Having that design, why was there even a comment about a potential stoplight? Would that only be if they?
So that would be at the existing U-turn location. I think it's actually located between our driveways. And so it would just be signalizing that existing U-turn to essentially allow folks to U-turn a little bit easier. And that would be subject to meeting NCDOT warrants.
I'm using some dangerous Johnston County common sense here, not traffic engineering, but it seems to me like y'all got a good a plan as y'all can have considering the reduced conflict and the way that new road is. So that makes sense to me. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Question on the trip generation
Yes, sir.
information.
Yep.
The way I read it, and I don't know how to read it, there's 6,400 trips a day. There's less than 1,000 at both peak AM and PM.
Yes, sir.
If you go out on 42, the highway's empty in between AM and PM peak. You've got another 5,000 trips
Yeah. So
coming out during that period. Well,
So when we refer to as the AM or PM peak hour, we are specifically looking at 1 hour period.
okay.
Realistically, your PM peak might be 2 hours. And so there would be another quite a large portion of the traffic. And then there would be some throughout the day as well, entering and exiting, somebody bringing a kid to school and then coming back home type situation.
Yeah, okay. And that could be, and that would bring up another problem because the schools, especially would be a left turn out of the access roads. But most of the traffic there in the AM or PM are people going to work, either Raleigh or the other side of town. That's okay in the morning. On the way in, if you, and I'm assuming you've gone out there from time to time. When I came in at 6 o'clock, and it is still under construction, traffic was backed up all the way to Front Street.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to get better when the two lanes are open. But when one of those lanes is backed up because people are making U-turns, then it's going to start to go back to where it is now, it would seem. And that, I just can't get my mind around that there's not going to be a massive backup, especially every evening. I can see in the morning, it's not going to be a problem because most everybody comes out and turns right and goes up the hill and goes one way or the other.
Yeah.
If you're going toward Wilson or something like that, then you have a problem. But everybody's going the other way.
A lot of the issue right now you're seeing out there is the intersections. It's very hard to coordinate signals that are under construction.
Yeah.
I mean, you just, quite frankly, you're being stopped at each one along the way. And it's because they're kind of in a state right now where they're changing quite rapidly. So as that opens up, you'll have a lot of capacity, not just from the additional lanes, but also just from the coordinated signals that you're gonna see a lot of benefit from.
Okay. That was the only thing. The other gentleman up there, your plan, I think, is very impressive when I saw that, and it's because that's been, I've been living down here 9 years. That was open when I moved down here, and people around here were saying that was going to be a venue, that was going to be this, that was going to be that, and nothing ever happened. I think it's great that you're going to do that to it. Now, the only concern I had was, as I said, I live off Glen Laurel Road. And so I come up to 42 and it's a mess. Now, I know a whole lot of that is the improvements, but I was just wondering how much of once that's done, is that all going to be absorbed? And, because we're adding, if you've got 800 units, you can be adding 1,200 cars a day to that. If each house has a car and a half, there aren't that many half cars, but still, it's a lot to add in there. And I was just wondering if these numbers, and that's something else we've talked about with the ordinances. You had 74 pages in the TIA study. Most of that, a lot of that, maybe not most, is like looking at a foreign language. And I know it's not a foreign language to you, and I'm hoping that you're looking at that from the end point and saying, well, yeah, it's bad now. It's going to get better. We're going to add this, but it's still going to get even better. And if you're saying that, I can trust that for right now. And if not, then we'll come get you later.
Yeah, and these TIAs are also reviewed by NCDOT. They have a specific group
and they had that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they kind of double check us, so to speak, and make sure that things are going to operate the way that we're showing that they're going to operate. And they've got a group there that all they do is sit there and review TIAs. So they see these day in and day out. And they're actually located kind of between here and Garner. So odds are they could live right here in the area as well, and are familiar with it. So it's definitely being viewed by a lot of sets of eyes and paid very close attention to.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got a question for Director Howell. Again, I'm very supportive of this proposed development agreement, conditional use, or excuse me, a conditional zoning district. But how does our current access ordinance relate to this? Because it seems like this does not meet our current minimum number of entrances. So are they going to have to get a Board of Adjustment variance and a conditional zoning approval from the council? Because I believe at 30 units right now, we have to have one entrance. Obviously, you always got to have one. And then between 30 and 100, you have two. And then between over 100, you have three. So how is that rationalized? And again, I'm very supportive of this because I think that with the site they're given and the constraints they're given, that this is appropriate. But I also want everybody to be treated equally in the development world. So, if somebody comes in the future with a 40 lot subdivision and they've only got one entry point, I think it'd be very wrong to say, oh, you can't do anything because you haven't got two entrances. Whereas here, we're given 800 units to two entrances. And also something can be said for how many units do you segregate in the back where you only have one entrance, kind of similar to Country Lane. So I just wanted to really point that out for our councilwoman, who I know will think about this and bring it up at the council meeting. And also just, for the planning board itself, so we can, learn from these things, because again, very supportive. I just want to point it out as a clerical type item in-house.
I'd have to look into that a little bit further. It's been a little while since I've had my head completely in this, but I'll look into that prior to the council meeting and make sure that we properly address that.
Because am I correct to say that the development agreement does not usurp a?
That's correct.
Okay.
Generally speaking, the development agreement cannot overrule a requirement of the code.
I've been paying attention while I've been up here.
Yeah.
So.
I have a question for him about the venue.
Yes, sir.
It seems to me, you were saying that weddings and things like that, it could be rented out. So how is that public if it's been rented out? Wouldn't that be private?
So it would be privately operated, and it's separate from the public park donation, but I think that the applicant is open to, if there was a desire for the town, or if there was a desire for within set limited ranges of having it open to the HOA to use, of creating opportunities for that. But it would be a private establishment, but could still provide some public benefit in that way. Does that answer your question?
Not that I want to try and answer Mr. Williams' question or restate Mr. Williams. If I live in Clayton, can I rent the event center for my daughter's wedding? And it's going to be open to the public. It's not going to be just for residents of River Muse.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. Yes. It would be available. I didn't know if you were making a distinction between, a town-owned facility or something that's always available versus something you have to pay in order to use. And so, it would be a privately run facility that would be open for members of the public to rent for weddings or other, it could be a, business conference or something along those lines. We're thinking primarily weddings. But I think that also there were conversations about, if there was a desire for some limited town use or for some limited HOA use, they would kind of, make some allowances to set aside some time.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Mm-hmm. And I did want to respond to your question, and I appreciate that comment. I think that so long as there wasn't any code prohibiting us from asking for that, if we needed a condition to speak to our number of access points, our preference would be just to include that as an additional condition to our request to avoid a kind of redundant process where we're going through a legislative rezoning with conditions and then a separate board of adjustment. But again, I'll leave it to staff to look at if that's allowed. But if there is a need and a provision where we could ask for it just as another condition, if needed, that would be our preference.
Yeah, and that's above my pay grade. I'm just pointing out something that I felt like was a kind of, really it's not an inconsistency, because I truly, am supportive of this. It's just that I've seen other people come in with proposals that this was a huge issue. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure there's consistency there. And there's also building on the knowledge base of the council and staff to say, hey, that not every piece of property is created the same. And even though you've got, some potential outlets here, you've got a major Fortune 500 company that owns one side, and then you've got a major, strong North Carolina family who's Governor Hunt was 16 years, governor of North Carolina. His family owns one side of your property, and they, I think his daughter and a niece and a nephew live there. So the likelihood of them developing anytime in the future,
right,
is very low. So I really feel like, you're going to have a beautiful little place here that's very, very protected, with 2 entrance points. And again, I'm very supportive. I'm going to vote to recommend approval. I just wanted to make sure that it was stated.
No, I, again, very much appreciate the comment.
So that's all we got.
I'd also have one other question. And I'm sorry. On I want to make sure that Johnston County, the Parks Guru, I cannot think of his name right now, has been brought to the table, because I know that one of the things that they wanted was to have a river launch location somewhere in Clayton, and it seems like this potential donation of land could not only be something that would benefit the town, but it would benefit the county, and it may be that it could be the county could help support that, because I know that when you accept land, you're also accepting maintenance responsibility. So I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't something that had slid by, and especially with our rec director, God bless his soul, I hope he's healing well, is out. He was in a very bad car accident, and I know he's out for at least probably till after the council is going to hear this. So I just wanted to make sure that that had been done.
So we as staff have not reached out to Johnson County Parks and Rec, but we certainly can. My understanding, I'd heard at one point that Johnson County was looking at land directly across the river from this for a canoe kayak launch, but I'm not sure where they are on that parcel, if they've actually purchased it or are looking to purchase it or not, but we can certainly reach out.
Be able to answer. This is a very viable location for that, and be looked at hopefully before the council consideration, because that might change your thought process on acceptance.
And I do want to point out, just respond to your earlier question about the access. It appears that in the code, the way the code is written, it's over 300 lots, requires 3 or more access points. And so it does appear that was an oversight from early on in the review of this by previous staff members. So if the planning board would like to include that in a recommendation to work out a condition that a third access point be provided, certainly can do that. Or, I will also be working with the applicant between the planning board and council meeting to try and make sure that that is addressed.
Yeah, I think that's up to the attorney and the council.
Yeah.
Just
I have one more question.
For the applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
How much public parking have you guys set aside for the town of Clayton people to come and be in the park area?
So what we're proposing, although Joey, Mr. Brem did speak to a willingness to look at building some pickleball courts if the town wished, as a means of also satisfying kind of some of our amenity requirements under the your sewer allocation policy. Outside of that potential improvement, what we're looking at doing is basically a land donation. We'd be creating the entrance drive, so we'd be creating the road infrastructure to get to it. But otherwise, we wouldn't be building the park, we'd be donating the land. Now, with that said, that's something that could be further discussed. And I think that what we're envisioning, to your point about maintenance, is we were envisioning most likely this would be something more natural, more of a natural setting. I mean, it would require parking like any public park would, but not envisioning, due to kind of the natural beauty of the site, not envisioning a bunch of ball fields out here, but things more like a potential kayak launch, picnic tables and covered seating areas, and things like a small disc golf course or things along those lines, of what we are more envisioning to kind of lower potential maintenance costs. But again, not going out there and constructing the entire park site.
Thanks.
open space park, not an active ball field park. I said an open space park more so than a ball field park, not something that's mass graded and forced into something that it doesn't want to be.
Yeah, more of an opportunity just to enjoy settings like this. Not to say there wouldn't be anything programmed within it, but to us, it seemed like kind of a tragedy to go in there and grade that and put in ball fields when you have something like this that exists today.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
In your language, you say public, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to get it confused that it's not really public.
Yeah, the 13 acre would be given to the town in public land, public access.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this, sir? Are you, I'm assuming that you're done right now?
Yes, sir, unless there's additional questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Planning Board. My name is Robert Miller. I am a employee of Caterpillar, so representing Caterpillar here on that side. I'm the facility and site manager for the site just north of this proposal. First of all, I will say, having sat here tonight and listened, very exciting proposal. We're really proud part of the Clayton community in North Carolina, and we're doing everything we can to recruit the best and brightest people to this location. So I will say right out of the gate, some really exciting things that we see in this proposal. The concern that we've got that we would like your support to work through with the applicant, and again, we became aware of this proposal just last week, is we do have a lot of research and development activities that happen on that site. And to be clear on that site, it is a premier research and development site for Caterpillar. We have people come from around the world here to Clayton saying this is one of the best locations in the world to do product development. So when you look at the location, and if I may, can I advance your slides? Do you mind? Can you all see my mouse as I move it here? This piece of property right here, just north of the applicant, is a piece we purchased back in December of 2020. And we are probably about 2 months away from coming to you all with a request to rezone that as industrial and to do a small expansion on that parcel for some additional endurance applications that we would like to do. So what we would have a concern and a desire to do with the applicant with this proposal is to ensure that as we look to use that parcel for our activities, that one, we create an adequate buffer in between their activities and ours. One, because we want to be good neighbors, but also two, we have a lot of confidential work that we are doing on that site, and we want to make sure that it's far enough away from the homeowners and all the other people that are going to enjoy the applicant's location. So in summary, I will say, again, a lot of positive things about this, having seen it for the first time this evening. We are looking to rezone that parcel that is just northwest of where they're looking to develop. And we want to work with the applicant to make sure we've got good buffer, good confidentiality, and we can use that land for some of our activities.
Okay. That all sounds very good from both sides, yeah. I'm assuming that would not be a problem to work out with the town council, getting them in there. Well, the buffer, if they make the buffer on their side, yeah.
We can do tonight, if we want to
Yeah.
add a condition that we post to the council, or make sure that, because you did a great presentation. And, you know, his voice just needs to be heard. And I know he'll go to the town council meeting also, but what else can we do to additionally put that in the record? Because we do want to protect a good corporate citizen. Because thank you guys for everything that y'all do for our community. And they were here first.
And if I can make a suggestion, we would really want to try and make sure we use the topography of the land so that buffer is as beneficial as possible for both. So I hate to put a condition on things this evening, but the main thing would be is we want to work in a proactive way to leverage that topography so it works well for them, it works well for us. And I don't know exactly what the lay of that would be yet, but that's the request.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want to spend anyone in the process here, but would it be possible for the board to consider a condition that has to have a conversation without doing anything really kind of very organic process? roving or, you know, finding and taking specific two parties.
Yes, that certainly
Could we just put in the statement that, I don't know, because I feel it apply to the developer, but also feel it apply to Caterpillar. So, to me, it's, he's come with an olive branch, and I know these guys are going to be exchanging business cards before they leave here tonight. But I think the biggest thing that me as a planning board member, and I think that these guys are going to say the same thing, is that we want it duly noted in the conditions that he came up tonight and what he said to point out to the council to make sure it's like highlighted in the notes. So somebody speed reading doesn't jump over it, that, hey, this is a concern. And we want to make sure that the developer hears that as well, because it seems like there's potential solutions there. And just everybody's got to work together.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple ways to do that. One, the planning board can just mention in their motion, specifically bring out that concern, not necessarily recommend a condition about it, but you could bring out that concern or ask that the applicant put forth a condition, prior to town council. Or you can also, you can recommend specifically a condition. I think, Councilmember Archer is just pointing out, her concern is locking the applicant or Caterpillar into something specific without given them an opportunity to discuss it. So I think, the board, the planning, I think it's, the concern has been noted and will be noted in the minutes, but if the planning board wants to specifically mention it in their motion, you can do that as well.
Are y'all okay with a mention, or are you on a condition? Because I'm fine with being mentioned it, and I know that Councilwoman Archer, as long as she's at that meeting, that she's going to state something about it. Because I do appreciate you being so thorough with your presentation. And I will say this, that you're, as long as I've been up here and I was on the council before, you're one of the most thorough ex officios that we've ever had. So thank you.
Yeah, I would agree on that, on the condition in there, and just make sure that it's mentioned when it comes before council, that it's not inadvertently left out. Because I would think they'd be as interested as we are on getting both parties on the same side and working things out.
Okay.
Okay. So, is there any other public comment on this topic? Okay, can I hear anything from the board in discussion?
I think I've said enough tonight, but if you want me to talk some more, I can probably think of something.
I do have one other follow-up question on Caterpillar. So he mentioned a rezoning potentially in the next couple of years. Is there anything that's taking place tonight that could impact a rezoning from an opposition perspective from the development?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
To be clear on the timing, we most likely would put forward that proposal to rezone in the next couple of months, and then develop that land over probably a year to a year and a half. But we have no intention of using that entire parcel because we do want a buffer to our neighbors, but there are portions of it that we would like to use.
Can I get a motion for approval or denial on this project? Please.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that we recommend approval of 2022-154 River Muse Conditional Zoning District and Master Plan I move that we find the rezoning action to be consistent with the future land use map and the recommended density in the adopted 2045 comprehensive growth plan. And we find the rezoning action reasonable and in the public interest because it supports goals LU1, LU2, and LU3 of the 2045 comprehensive growth plan by encouraging growth in appropriate areas, providing a sense of place, and enhancing aesthetics along major corridors and in new developments, and providing a range of housing types and lot sizes to meet the needs of various income levels, family sizes, and ages. And I would like to add that we have requested the Director Howell to specifically mention Caterpillar and what was mentioned here tonight extensively in his report to the town council prior to their meeting, so they will have time to digest that.
So the third turn in, the third street.
But I don't think they can add a third entrance. So I was just mentioning that as something that I want to make sure that council realizes. So, yeah.
Can I get a
I
second?
second that motion.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Is there any other new business? Sir?
Not really much new business, but just wanted to give you a couple quick updates for the planning department. One, we were fully staffed for a week. We are no longer fully staffed. So we are getting ready to repost our Planner 2 position, again, with the hopes of being able to fill that in the coming month. We have scheduled 2 upcoming public stakeholder and public meetings for the Gateway 42 plan. The first of those is coming up on May 18th, which I believe is a Thursday. It's either Wednesday or Thursday. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. It'll be at the Community Center Gymnasium. And then the third and last public meeting for the Gateway 42 plan will be June 8th, also at the Community Center Gymnasium. You'll see more information coming out from the town about that over the next couple weeks. And you'll also see updates on the Gateway 42 website about those meetings. And then just also wanted to let you know, we are continuing to work on the draft chapters for the Unified Development Code. We're about 2/3 of the way through Module 2 right now in the staff review. So our goal is in about 2 weeks, about a week, I think it's a week from Friday is the deadline I gave y'all. We will be sending you the Module 2 for the Unified Development Code Steering Committee review. Our next meeting is currently scheduled for the third Wednesday in May. The date escapes me at this point. I believe it's May 17th. So we will be meeting May 17th at 6 p.m. As a UDC steering committee reviewing Module 2, which will be chapters 3, 4, and 5. And be prepared because that's probably going to be about 200 plus pages to review. It looks like as of right now, chapter 4 is somewhere over 100 pages alone. So, but it's going to be more interesting things to review. Chapter 3 is the land usage chapter, so it'll have the table of uses. Chapter 4 is the use standards chapter, so it'll go into detail for every single use, providing definition and standards for it. And then chapter 5 is the nonconformities chapter. So, again, look forward to some nice bedtime reading here over the next couple of weeks for y'all. And we'll see you again on May 17th for the steering committee meeting.
Is there any further informal discussion or public comment on anything?
Move we adjourn.
Can I get a movement for adjournment?
So moved.
Meeting's adjourned.